The sound of the door slamming echoed through the mansion, and in the silence that followed, Justin stood frozen. His heart pounded as he stared at the spot where his girlfriend, Caroline, had just stormed out of his life. "You'll regret this," she yelled, her voice sharp with anger and betrayal, her heels clicking on the marble floor as she stormed down the hall. Justin's mind raced, trying to understand what had just happened. He never thought it would end this way. His relationship with Caroline had been perfect, or so he thought. She was beautiful, successful, and the woman he had imagined spending his life with. But now, she was gone, leaving him with nothing but emptiness and confusion. He sank into the nearest chair, staring at the door as if willing it to open again, as if Caroline would come back and apologize. But he knew that wasn't going to happen. She had always made it clear that she wouldn't stand for anything less than perfection. And right now, Justin was far from perfect. He had failed her, and it was too late to fix it. A knock at the door broke through his haze. Justin barely lifted his head to look, but the maid, Mary, stepped inside with her usual quiet grace. She had been working in his mansion for years, ever since his family had hired her when he was a teenager. Mary was always kind, dependable, and fiercely loyal. But more than that, she had a quiet strength about her that made her stand out among the other staff. "Mr. Justin, sir," she said softly. "Is everything all right?" I heard yelling. Justin didn't answer immediately. Instead, he buried his face in his hands. He felt like a failure, not just in his relationship, but in everything he had ever done. All his wealth, all his success. What did it matter if he couldn't hold on to the one thing that truly mattered? "Sir?" Mary's voice was gentle, but it carried an undercurrent of concern. "Would you like some tea? Or maybe just a few minutes to talk?" He lifted his head and looked at her. His eyes were red from unshed tears, but he didn't care. I don't know what to do anymore, Mary. I thought I had everything figured out. And now I have nothing." Mary's face softened, her gaze understanding, though she didn't say anything at first. She simply walked over to him, knelt down, and placed a hand on his shoulder. It was an unexpected gesture of comfort from someone who had seen him at his lowest, but never once judged him for it. "You still have yourself, Mr. Justin," she said quietly. "And sometimes that's all you need." The words struck him in a way he didn't expect. For the first time in hours, he felt a flicker of something. Maybe hope? It was strange, the way Mary's simple presence had a calming effect on him. He wasn't used to that, but he didn't say anything more. Instead, he nodded gratefully, and she stood up, leaving the room as quietly as she had entered. Justin was alone again, but this time, there was something different. His thoughts weren't as clouded with anger or self-pity. There was something about Mary's words that made him want to be better, to fight for something. But what? He leaned back in his chair, his mind spinning. Was it just a moment of weakness? Or was there something more? He wasn't sure, but he knew one thing for certain. He had lost Caroline, but maybe, just maybe, there was still something to be found. As the evening wore on, Justin found himself standing by the grand windows of his mansion, staring out into the night. The vast estate stretched before him, a symbol of everything he had built. But now, all he could see was a hollow reflection of his life. And in that reflection, a thought crossed his mind, sharp and unexpected. Could she be the one to help me? The thought hit him like a wave. He shook his head, almost laughing at the absurdity of it. She was just his maid. A kind, hard-working woman who had always been there for him in quiet ways, but nothing more than that. And yet, for some reason, he couldn't shake the feeling that she was someone who understood him better than anyone else ever had. As the night passed, the idea of calling it quits, of giving up on everything, seemed less and less appealing. He didn't know how to move forward, but in that moment, a small part of him wondered if Mary was the one who could show him the way. And yet, the tension between them was still so raw. Was it even possible? Could he be with someone like her after everything that had just happened? He didn't know. But one thing was clear. His life was about to change in ways he couldn't even imagine. The following day, Justin received a call. The phone's persistent ring echoed through the silence, slicing through Justin's thoughts like a sharp blade. He glanced at the caller ID, noting it was his business partner, Alan. With a deep breath, he answered. "Justin." Alan's voice came through, brisk and direct. "We've got a deal on the table. It's risky, but it's got the potential to make us millions. I need a decision from you by tomorrow." Justin's heart raced. This wasn't just any business venture. It was the kind of opportunity that came once in a lifetime, but it also carried major consequences. If he took the deal, it could solidify his position as one of the wealthiest men in the world. But it would also require him to make sacrifices, things he wasn't sure he was ready for. The thought of the deal brought him back to the turmoil of the previous night. Caroline had left him, and with her went his trust in everything he had once thought was secure. Now, faced with this decision, Justin felt more unsure than ever about what he truly wanted. "Okay, Alan, I'll think about it," Justin said, trying to mask the uncertainty in his voice. The line went dead, but the weight of the conversation lingered in the air. He ran his fingers through his hair, staring out the window, trying to process what Alan had just said. Millions of dollars were at stake. His future. Everything was riding on this choice. Yet, as his mind swirled with calculations and possibilities, he couldn't stop thinking about Mary. The way her quiet kindness had made him feel grounded. The way she had comforted him when he was at his lowest, when Caroline's harsh words still echoed in his ears. Mary wasn't just the maid. She was the only one who had been there for him when no one else was. A knock on the door pulled him from his thoughts. Justin turned around, expecting to see one of the other staff, but instead, Mary entered the room, carrying a tray of coffee. "Sir, I thought you might want some," she said, her voice as calm and steady as ever. Justin looked at her, studying her for a moment. There was something in her eyes, something deeper than the usual professionalism she displayed. Maybe it was concern, maybe empathy, but it was more than that. Mary seemed to have this quiet way of understanding, as if she knew more about him than he realized. "Thank you, Mary," Justin said, taking the cup. The steam curled up from the surface, filling the room with a comforting warmth. He felt the tension in his chest loosen slightly. "You're welcome, Mr. Justin," she replied, but her gaze lingered for a moment longer than usual. "If there's anything I can do to help, just let me know." He nodded, unsure of how to respond. He couldn't explain why, but there was a part of him that felt like he could trust her. He didn't even know how he was going to move forward with his life, but somehow, with Mary around, it felt a little less lonely. "Thank you," he repeated softly. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence was comfortable yet heavy. Justin was torn between the decisions in front of him. The business opportunity that could make him a billionaire or the feeling of something he had never considered. Love, companionship, something genuine that had always been there under his nose. Suddenly, Mary spoke again, her voice quieter now, almost tentative. "Sir, if I may, I noticed you've been troubled these past few days. You don't have to share, but if there's anything you need advice on, I'm here." Justin's heart skipped a beat. He hadn't realized how much she had been watching him, observing him all this time, but in that moment he felt a deep appreciation for her offer. Not many people would care enough to even notice his internal battle, let alone offer their help. He looked at her, the woman who had always been there, working tirelessly without complaint, the woman who was still here after everything he had lost. His mind flashed back to the heartache from the night before, but now it felt different, like a distant memory, a past that no longer defined him. "You've always been there for me, Mary," he said slowly, "even when no one else was." She smiled, a small, knowing smile. "It's my job, Mr. Justin, but it's also because I care." The words hung in the air, more significant than any of the others that had passed between them. Justin felt his chest tighten with emotion, something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in a long time. Vulnerability. Just then, the phone rang again. This time it was Alan calling back to follow up. Justin stood up abruptly, his mind racing. The phone call would demand his decision, and soon. He had to choose between the money, the deal that could make him everything he ever dreamed of, or something else that was far less tangible, something real, personal. "Excuse me," Justin said, his voice distant. "I need to take this." Mary nodded and quietly exited the room, leaving Justin to face his next choice alone. As Justin answered the phone, Alan's words hit him with unexpected force. "If you take the deal, we'll need your full commitment. No distractions. It'll cost you more than you think. Are you ready for that?" Justin's heart skipped. He looked down at his hand, still holding the coffee cup, his fingers trembling. Could he really let go of everything, money, success, his empire, for something he wasn't sure about? Or was it too late for any other choice? The weight of the question hung heavy on his shoulders. Justin stood still for a moment, staring at the phone in his hand as Alan's voice continued through the receiver, urging him to make a decision. "Are you listening, Justin?" Alan's voice was sharp, impatient. "We need an answer. This opportunity won't wait forever." Justin swallowed hard, trying to shake off the fog of uncertainty clouding his mind. Everything Alan had said was true. The deal could change his life, his legacy, but it would come at a cost. And the more he thought about it, the more he realized that the cost might be greater than he was willing to pay. "Okay, Alan," he said finally, his voice steadier than he felt. "I'll give you my answer by the end of the day." He ended the call, his hand shaking as he placed the phone down on the marble countertop. For a moment, everything felt like it was spinning. His heart, his thoughts, even the world around him. He had always prided himself on being decisive, on making the right choices when it mattered most. But this felt different. The silence of the mansion swallowed him whole as he stood there, alone. The weight of the decision was suffocating, pressing down on his chest like a heavy blanket. What would Caroline think? The thought of her, the woman who had left him without a second glance, suddenly seemed so distant, almost irrelevant. But the sting of her departure was still fresh, and he realized that he wasn't just mourning the loss of a relationship. He was mourning the idea of what his life had once been, a perfect illusion. Now all that remained was a fractured image of himself, alone, unsure, and staring at a future that seemed less certain than it ever had before. With a deep breath, Justin turned around, searching for something to steady his thoughts. And that's when his eyes landed on the open door. It was Mary, standing just outside, with her usual quiet demeanor, but her eyes were filled with something more this time. Concern, maybe? Or was it something deeper? "Mary," Justin said, his voice a little more strained than he intended. She stepped into the room without hesitation, closing the door behind her. There was no hiding from this now. The questions were there, lingering in the air between them, unsaid yet obvious. "Yes, Mr. Justin?" she asked, her voice soft but steady. "Can we talk?" he said, his words carrying more weight than he expected. I don't know what to do anymore. I have a huge decision to make, and I'm not sure which way to go." Mary nodded, silently moving toward him, her every step measured, calm, as though she had already known that this conversation would come. "I've seen you struggle, sir," she said quietly, "and I can tell this decision is weighing on you heavily. But if you don't mind me asking, what are you really afraid of?" Justin looked at her, taken aback by the question. The bluntness of it caught him off guard. He had expected sympathy, maybe even a little encouragement, but not this. This was different. "I'm afraid of losing everything," he confessed, his voice shaking slightly. "This business deal, it could give me everything I've ever wanted. But what if it costs me more than I'm willing to pay?" Mary took a step closer, her gaze never leaving his. "And what exactly do you think you'll lose, sir?" The question was simple, but Justin found it hard to answer. What was he really afraid of losing? The money? The status? The empire he had worked so hard to build? Or something else? Something deeper? Something intangible that he hadn't realized he craved until now? I don't know. Justin ran his hands through his hair, feeling the pressure building inside his chest. "I've spent my life chasing success, but I'm starting to wonder if I've lost sight of what really matters. Mary didn't say anything right away. Instead, she took a seat across from him, giving him the space he needed. For a moment, they both sat in silence, the only sound the distant ticking of the clock on the wall. "You've been alone for a long time, Mr. Justin," Mary said finally, her voice low. "But you don't have to be. Sometimes the things we fear losing aren't the things that truly matter. Maybe you should think about what you want, not what you've been told to want." Her words hit him like a wave, washing over him in a way that he didn't expect. He looked at her, really looked at her for the first time. There was so much more to Mary than he had ever realized. She wasn't just a maid. She was someone who saw the world differently, someone who understood the quiet battles people faced, even when they didn't speak of them. "I don't know what I want anymore," Justin admitted, the confession feeling like a weight lifted from his shoulders. "But I know I'm not happy. I thought I could buy happiness, that money would solve everything. But it hasn't." Mary nodded slowly, her expression thoughtful. "Money can buy many things, Mr. Justin, but it can't buy peace of mind or love or the simple joy of being understood." The words hung in the air between them, their weight settling into Justin's soul. He realized then that Mary wasn't just comforting him. She was opening his eyes to something he had ignored for far too long. The sound of footsteps broke the moment. It was the housekeeper, stepping in with a polite knock at the door. "Mr. Justin, there's someone here to see you." "Who?" Justin asked, already feeling the tension of his decision return. "It's your business partner, Alan, sir," she replied. Mary stood up, nodding once, silently signaling that their conversation was over. For now. Justin watched her leave, feeling a strange emptiness at her departure. But as he turned to face Alan, the nagging weight of the decision he had to make seemed even heavier. Alan stepped into the room, his presence commanding, the air thick with unspoken urgency. "I'm glad you're ready to make a decision, Justin," he said, locking eyes with him. "But before we sign anything, there's something you need to know. A major obstacle has come up in the deal, and if we don't act fast, it could cost you everything." Justin's heart skipped a beat. What was Alan talking about? Another complication? Could this deal really be more than he bargained for? Alan's words hung in the air like an ominous cloud, casting a shadow over everything. Justin's heart raced as he tried to process what he had just heard. A major obstacle? Alan stood there, his eyes cold and calculating, waiting for Justin to react. The tension between them was thick, the kind of silence that demanded an answer but didn't offer any solutions. Justin, still reeling from his conversation with Mary, felt a rising sense of dread. He had never been one to back down from a challenge, but this was something else entirely. "What do you mean, Alan?" Justin finally asked, his voice low but steady. He wasn't going to let Alan see how rattled he felt. Not yet. Alan smirked, as though enjoying the power he held in that moment. "There's been a shift in the market. A rival company is making moves, and it's looking like they might have a better offer for our partners. If we don't move quickly, we could lose everything. Our stake in the company, the assets, everything." Justin felt a cold knot form in his stomach. The stakes had just become even higher. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about his entire future. The empire he had spent years building could come crashing down around him in a matter of days. He had no choice but to fight, but the question remained, was he willing to sacrifice everything for it? "We need to act fast, Justin," Alan continued. "But it's going to cost more than you think. There are resources we'll have to pull from, people we might need to push aside. It's a cutthroat game, and you need to be ready to play dirty." Justin's mind began to spin. This wasn't just a business decision anymore, it was a moral one. He had always prided himself on being fair and just, but now Alan was asking him to sacrifice that. To put everything on the line and risk losing his integrity in the process. As if reading his mind, Alan added, "You can't afford to be weak now, Justin. You've come too far to back down." Justin looked at Alan, feeling a mixture of anger and confusion. How had everything gotten so complicated? One moment, he was still trying to process the end of his relationship with Caroline, and now he was being thrown into a battle for his future, his legacy. "I need time to think," Justin said, his voice firm. "We'll talk about this again tomorrow. I'll give you my decision then." Alan narrowed his eyes, but then nodded. "Don't take too long. The clock is ticking." As Alan left, Justin felt the weight of the world pressing down on him. He had always been good at making decisions, but this felt like the kind of choice that could destroy him. Every part of him screamed that he needed to walk away, to reject the deal and find another path. But the other part of him, the part that wanted to prove everyone wrong, the part that wanted to rise above the wreckage of his life, whispered that this was his only chance. His mind turned back to Mary. Her words had stayed with him, her reminder that some things mattered more than money. Was he willing to risk his soul for the deal Alan had offered? Was he willing to sacrifice the one thing he had never truly valued, genuine human connection, for the allure of power? He couldn't shake the image of her face, the way she had looked at him, calm and unwavering, as though she knew exactly what he was going through. She had been right. He had been chasing success for so long that he had forgotten to consider what he really needed. What if this deal wasn't just a test of his business acumen? What if it was a test of his heart? As the evening settled into a heavy silence, Justin found himself staring at the grand staircase that led to his bedroom. There, at the top of the stairs, stood Mary, her silhouette framed by the soft light of the hallway. She didn't say anything. She simply stood there, watching him with those quiet, knowing eyes. It was as though she was waiting for him to make a choice, but he wasn't sure if she was waiting for him to choose the deal, or something else entirely. Justin's heart raced as he walked toward her, but before he could say anything, Mary spoke first. "Mr. Justin," she said softly, her voice tinged with something deeper this time. "There's something I think you need to know. About the deal. And about me." The words Mary spoke echoed in Justin's ears as he stood frozen on the staircase, only a few feet away from her. It felt as though the world had suddenly paused, and all the noise of his life, his business, his heartbreak, the decision that loomed over him, had faded into nothing. All that remained was this moment, and the weight of what Mary was about to say. "Mr. Justin," she repeated, her voice softer now, "there's something I think you need to know. About the deal. And about me." Justin's heart raced, his thoughts scattering in 1,000 different directions. His mind screamed at him to ask her to explain, to demand answers, but something about the way she stood there, her posture almost hesitant, made him hold back. She wasn't just speaking about the business deal. There was more to this, much more. "What is it, Mary?" he asked, his voice steady, though inside, he was anything but. Mary stepped down the stairs slowly, the soft click of her shoes on the marble floor filling the silence between them. Her eyes never left his, and for the first time, he saw something in them that he hadn't noticed before: vulnerability, fear, perhaps even a trace of regret. "You don't have to take that deal, Mr. Justin," she said quietly, "and you don't have to face this alone." Justin's brow furrowed in confusion. "What do you mean?" "You know what's at stake. If I don't take the deal, everything I've worked for could crumble. The money, the legacy. It's all on the line." Mary nodded, but there was something else in her eyes. "It's true, but there's something you're forgetting." She paused, her voice almost a whisper. "You've built this empire, Justin, but you've built it on the backs of others, and sometimes that comes with a price." The words hit him like a cold wave, and for a moment, Justin was speechless. What was she implying? How did she know so much? "What do you mean by a price?" he asked, his voice trembling, betraying the uncertainty he felt deep down. Mary took a deep breath, gathering her courage before she spoke again. "I wasn't just hired to clean, Mr. Justin. I've been watching you, and I've seen the choices you've made, the things you've sacrificed for the sake of your empire. You've put everything into your business, but at what cost?" She looked down, then back up at him, her expression sincere. "I'm not just your maid, Justin. I was once like you, driven, determined to succeed no matter the cost. But I lost myself along the way. Justin's mind raced. Was she suggesting that she knew something about his past? Was she telling him that he was heading down the same path she had walked, one that had led her to what? He needed answers, and fast. "Mary," he said, his voice a little more urgent now. "What are you trying to tell me?" She hesitated for a moment, looking away as if trying to find the right words. Then she took another step closer, her voice barely audible. "I was once in your shoes, Justin. I had a life, a family, dreams. But I lost it all when I made the same choice you're about to make. The choice to put business above everything else. The choice to chase success no matter what it cost." Justin's breath caught in his throat. He had no idea what she was talking about. Mary, his loyal, hard-working maid, had once been just like him? Had she too sacrificed everything for something that ultimately didn't bring happiness? "I don't understand," Justin said, his voice a whisper now. "What happened?" Mary's eyes softened with a mixture of sadness and regret. "I lost my family, my happiness. I chose work, I chose success. And I thought that would be enough. But it wasn't. Nothing is enough if you're alone." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "I left my old life behind to work here, to start fresh. And while I've built a new life, I've never stopped thinking about the choices I made. And now, seeing you in the same position, I can't help but wonder if you'll make the same mistake." A chilling silence followed, and Justin's heart pounded in his chest. The weight of her words settled on him, heavy and undeniable. Was he really about to make the same mistakes? Was the deal, this pursuit of wealth and power, worth losing everything just as Mary had? "But it's not too late," Mary continued softly, her eyes locking onto his. "You still have a chance to choose something different. Something that matters more than money." Justin stared at her, his mind spinning. Could she be right? For the first time, he felt the full force of his choices. He had been so consumed with building his empire that he had neglected the things that truly mattered. Connection, love, and the people who cared about him. He thought back to the moment when Caroline had left him. He had tried to convince himself that he was fine, that he didn't need her or anyone else. But now, standing in front of Mary, this woman who had shown him nothing but kindness and understanding, he realized how empty he had truly been. His gaze fell to the floor as his thoughts swirled, trying to find clarity amidst the chaos. Was Mary offering him a way out? A chance to choose something more meaningful? A life with real connections instead of just cold, empty success? The sound of footsteps echoed from the hallway, breaking the silence. It was Alan, returning for the final answer. He walked into the room, his confident stride stopping abruptly when he saw the tension between them. "Well, Justin," Alan asked, his tone sharp, "what's it going to be?" Justin felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him once more. The deal, the business, the money, everything he had worked for. It was all within his grasp, but at what cost? He looked back at Mary, her gentle expression unwavering, and in that moment he made his decision. "I'm not taking the deal, Alan," Justin said, his voice firm, his heart steady for the first time in days. "I've realized that there are things far more important than money. I'm going to start over. I'm going to make different choices from now on." Alan's face twisted in disbelief, his anger barely contained. "You're making a huge mistake, Justin. You'll regret this." But Justin wasn't listening anymore. He turned to Mary, and for the first time he truly saw her, her strength, her wisdom, the quiet beauty in her eyes. She wasn't just the maid anymore. She was someone who had shown him a different way, a way he had never considered before. "Mary," he said softly, "thank you for helping me see the truth." Her eyes filled with something like hope as she smiled at him, her face lighting up. "It's never too late to change, Mr. Justin." As Justin made his way toward the door, Alan's voice still echoed in his ears, but it no longer held any power over him. He had made his choice, and for the first time Justin felt like he was truly free. Months passed since Justin made the decision to walk away from the business deal and choose a life of genuine connection over cold ambition. The mansion, once filled with echoes of empty conversations and fleeting relationships, now seemed warmer, more inviting. Justin had begun to rebuild his life, focusing on the things that truly mattered: his family, his friends, and most importantly, Mary. She had been by his side from the very beginning, offering guidance, strength, and support when he was at his lowest. It wasn't long before Justin realized that what he had with Mary was more than just a deep appreciation. It was love. Their relationship had blossomed slowly, naturally, with neither of them rushing into anything. But as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, Justin knew, deep down, that he had found something he never thought possible: a love built on trust, kindness, and mutual respect. One evening, as they sat together in the quiet of the living room, Justin turned to Mary with a look of certainty in his eyes. "Mary," he said softly, "I don't think I can imagine my life without you. You've shown me what really matters, and I'm ready to build a future with you. Will you marry me?" Mary's eyes filled with tears as she looked at him, a mixture of surprise and joy painting her face. She had always known that Justin was capable of greatness, but never in her wildest dreams had she imagined it would be because of her. "Yes, Justin," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Yes, I will marry you." It wasn't a lavish affair or a grand ceremony. They chose to marry in the simplicity of their home, surrounded by a small group of family and close friends. The love that radiated between them was all that mattered. Justin knew that this was where he was meant to be, and Mary, with all her quiet strength, had been the anchor he needed to steady his ship. Just as their wedding day came to a close, and Justin felt like he was finally on the path to true happiness, the past came knocking. The sound of the doorbell echoed through the quiet night, startling both Justin and Mary. Justin's heart skipped a beat as he looked at Mary, unsure of who could be visiting at this late hour. The door opened, and standing there, with a hesitant look in her eyes, was Caroline, the woman who had once been the center of his world. Her eyes flickered with guilt and sorrow as she took in the sight of Justin and Mary, standing hand in hand. There was no mistaking the pain in Caroline's expression, and Justin could sense that something had changed in her. "Justin," she said softly, her voice trembling, I never thought I'd see you again, especially not like this. But I have to say it, I was wrong. I'm sorry. I should have never left. I thought I could do better, but I was wrong. I lost the one person who truly cared about me." Justin stood frozen, his mind racing. The years of hurt, the bitterness, the anger, it all came rushing back. He had moved on, found peace with himself, and even built a future with someone who truly understood him. And yet, here was Caroline, standing in front of him, asking for forgiveness. "I know it's late," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I need to say this. I was selfish and I pushed you away. I see now that what we had, it was real. I never appreciated you the way I should have. I know you've moved on, and I respect that, but I had to come back and beg for your forgiveness. I was wrong to leave you the way I did." Mary stood by his side, her hand still in his, but she was watching him carefully, sensing the internal battle waging inside him. Justin's mind was a whirlwind. He had forgiven Caroline in his heart long ago. Her departure had been painful, but it had also been the push he needed to grow, to discover what truly mattered in life. Now, with her standing here, asking for forgiveness, Justin realized how far he had come. His love for her was gone, replaced with a deeper, more enduring love for Mary. "I forgave you a long time ago, Caroline," Justin said, his voice calm but firm. "But I've moved on. You made your choice and so did I. And what I have now, what I found with Mary, is something I would never give up for anything. I can't go back to what we were." Tears filled Caroline's eyes as she nodded, understanding the finality in Justin's words. She took a step back, the weight of her regrets heavy in the air. "I understand," she said softly, her voice breaking. "I really do. I only came to tell you that I'm sorry, and that I wish you the happiness you deserve." With a final, lingering look at Justin, Caroline turned and walked away, disappearing into the night. Justin watched her go, But this time, there was no regret in his heart. No longing for the past. It was as if the final chapter of that part of his life had been written, and it was time to close the book for good. Turning to Mary, Justin smiled, his heart light. She's gone now, and with that, so is the past. I have everything I need right here with you. Mary smiled back, a quiet understanding passing between them. We have a future, Justin, together. As they stood in the doorway of their home, hand in hand, Justin knew that this was the beginning of a new chapter. The choices he had made, the love he had found, were all part of a larger story. A story of redemption, growth, and the power of second chances.